It's time for another episode of Second Take Cinema. Woo!
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 Wow!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming at you from the glorious Impala Films headquarters in sunny Southend-on-Sea. As always, I am your host, Jamie Evans, and I am joined, as always, by Mr. Rory Jocelyn.
Hello, everybody.
And today we turn back the clock. We turn back time to 1999, where we watch John McTiernan's The 13th Warrior. Welcome. We're in 1999. The internet's still shit, and the Spice Girls are still around.
And The Matrix is about to come out.
The Matrix is about to come. Wasn't it 98, The Matrix?
99.
Sixth Sense is top of the box office right now.
Mm.
I See Dead People. Spoiler alert.
Mm.
Anyway, The 13th Warrior, which was not top of the box office.
No.
The 13th Warrior is a 1999 American historical action film based on Michael Crichton's 1976 novel Eaters of the Dead. It is directed by John McTiernan, who you may know from Die Hard and Predator.
Though, I will have to add that John McTiernan...
They don't know him from Rollerball.
No. I have to add that John McTiernan, after he did the first cut, it was not received well by test audiences, so Michael Crichton took back
some
control.
uncredited reshots.
Yeah.
Shoots, yeah.
Yeah.
It stars Antonio Banderas, Diana Venora, and Omar Sharif.
Yes.
That's actually a bit weird that's who it lists on Wikipedia, because Diane Venora and Omar Sharif are very tiny characters in it.
Yeah, Omar Sharif is only in the intro and then he's gone.
Yeah.
But he was one of the biggest names in it other than Banderas himself.
That must be it, mustn't it?
Yeah.
Please
watch. It's got Omar Sharif in it.
It was made for a budget of between $85 to $160 million, apparently, depending on if you factor in the the marketing. Sorry.
Yeah.
It grossed a mere $61 million, officially making this the biggest box office bomb of the year 1999, with losses up to $129 million.
Which is a bit unfair, because it's not that bad a film, Jesus.
That'll put a sting in you, won't
definitely,
it?
Yeah.
The 13th Warrior holds a 33% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The consensus is atmospheric with great sets and costumes, but thin plot. Roger Ebert gave the film 1.5 stars out of 4, remarking that it lumbers from one expensive set piece to the next without taking the time to tell a story that might make us care. Conversely, however, James Berardinelli, gave The 13th Warrior 3 out of 4 stars, calling it a solid offering that delivers an exhilarating 100 minutes. Lisa Schwarzbaum of Entertainment Weekly rated it A- and called it the most unexpectedly audacious, exhilarating, and wildly creative adventure thriller I have seen in ages. The outcome of the film's production, however, was a huge disappointment to Omar Sharif, so much so that he actually temporarily retired from acting.
Yeah, I think he only did 2 major films afterwards, and the final one was Faralgo, I think, or something like that.
Oh, okay.
In 2004. But then, I mean, he was quite old, so he probably didn't do much after that anyway.
So he said, after my small role in The 13th Warrior, I said to myself, let us stop this nonsense, these meal tickets that we do because it pays well. I thought, unless I find a stupendous film that I love and that makes me want to leave home to do, I will stop. Bad pictures are very humiliating. I was really sick. It's terrifying to have to do the dialogue from bad scripts, to face a director who doesn't know what he's doing in a film so bad that it's not even worth exploring. That is some pretty harsh words about John McTiernan.
So, I mean, I've never worked with John McTiernan, but from what I've heard in the film that I think was directly after this Rollerball 2002, to say that he was going off his nut at this point would be an understatement, which is why Michael Crichton retook control of the project.
He'd lost his touch, hadn't he?
Yeah, and Rollerball was the one where he eventually ended up getting put in prison because he wiretapped his producer on that film. So he was very clearly going off the deep end in some way or another. Don't know why. There may have been reasons. It could be it could be anything. It could just be simple.
Maybe he just lost his touch.
Maybe just
Sometimes
lost his touch.
people just lose their touch.
But either way, John McTiernan was John McTiernan critique aside, I think Omar Sharif is being a little bit harsh. Let's talk about Omar Sharif's scenes specifically. He didn't have bad dialogue. It was just, I suppose, kind of he was just the translator.
Yeah.
So, like, he was only in the intro, and he's just the translator for Antonio Banderas before he learns the language. So, it's not bad dialogue. It works in the sequence of the film, but it does seem to be like, why would you hire Omar Sharif just for that? And by this point, obviously, he was a big name. So why hire him for that role? Maybe he's thinking, I won't leave home for a role where I'm literally just going, this is what they are saying. Thank you. Goodbye, Antonio.
Yeah.
And then runs off, fucks off into the sunset.
Yeah.
But, because I can't imagine that his part of this script was that bad. Even if he doesn't like the film,
I'd love to know what it was like on set to make him say that McTiernan didn't know what he was doing.
I mean, we've heard this a few times from different people. I mean, we heard it on the Super Mario Brothers movie when we did that on VGMP. Obviously,
not about McTiernan.
Not about McTiernan, but about the directors on that. But McTiernan specifically, I did a review of Rollerball 2002. My God, does that a clusterfuck? You can find that on my YouTube channel if you want to go and look into that.
So, before we dig into 13th Warrior, let's take care of the elephant in the room. I love Antonio Banderas. You love Antonio Banderas.
He's a great, great man.
Banderas strikes again.
Banderas strikes again.
We're going to clear this up now because I don't want to spend the whole episode having to keep reassuring people. Yes, Antonio Banderas should not be playing this part. It's racist. There's nothing else to say. It's racism. The character is a Middle Eastern man, and America went, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. It's completely different. I'm sure if this film was made today, they wouldn't do that. I'm sure Banderas wouldn't take the role if they did it today.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. It is a bit weird, certainly in a modern context where in the 90s, it wasn't really a big deal. No one really cared particularly. But nowadays, things have shifted. People really do care if you fit a demographic of the character. It's become a lot bigger
It's
an issue.
It's like you said, it's because things like this decision is what stops Middle Eastern actors from getting an opportunity. Because when a role is written for them,
it's given to someone who isn't.
It's given to someone who isn't.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not as it. Here's the thing: Antonio Banderas is fantastic in this part. It's not that he doesn't do a good job in the role. It's just he's the wrong person for the role, and so it's kind of odd because some people will forgive it because he's good in the role, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right decision.
Yeah,
there would have been Middle Eastern actors who could do this role as well, maybe at least as well, and given them an opportunity. And as we saw, you put fucking Omar Sharif in a fucking cameo role, really, and you plastered him all over the poster. You could have made one of the main Vikings a bigger name.
Yeah.
Because they're all white. There's plenty of white people.
Dolph Lundgren should be in this movie.
Dolph Lundgren as Bullseye would have been great.
Yeah.
That would have worked.
Okay, so let's start with Banderas, since we mentioned him. Because I'm gonna betray our good friend Banderas here.
No, don't betray the Banderas.
This is the worst performance I've ever seen Banderas give.
No, this is light years ahead of Spy Kids.
This is the worst one.
No.
And I'll tell you for why.
Go on, him.
And it's not his fault. They obviously asked him to do this. He is trying so hard to hide his accent.
Right.
And it's not working at all. So he alternates between this flattened out sort of a generic acceptable American.
Yeah.
And then the low sort of raspy Banderas.
Banderas.
That keeps like...
I listened.
Yeah, that keeps like sneaking in. Now, don't get me wrong, this is all better than having him try and put on a Middle Eastern accent. That would be way worse.
Yeah,
We
that
can all
would
agree
be
on
worse,
that.
Yeah.
It'd be a bit of an Apu at the Quickie Mart situation, I think.
Yeah, I think that would have aged it even worse.
Yeah. But this was my least favourite of everything I've ever seen Banderas in. Now, to be fair to him, and we will get on with this because I'm afraid I'm in Roger Ebert's camp on this film, there really is not a lot to the character. We really don't learn much at all about him.
Yeah, so we know his backstory right from the start is he's a guy who was obviously somewhat of a nobleman.
He was a poet, according to Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
To the royal court.
I mean, he's based on a real guy, so
yeah.
I suppose that helps with some factual accuracy. I haven't actually looked into the character very much, but from the mild bits we get in the film, he was someone of note who fell in love with a nobleman's wife, obviously had an affair, which normally in Middle Eastern culture of the time would have meant he would have been executed. But maybe because he was such a great poet, instead of being executed, he was exiled and made to be an ambassador for, I suppose, Muslim faith. Moving up north to try and
towards
speak
Europe.
to help with conversion or whatever. And while he's up there, he runs into the Northmen. That's all we really get of him. We see bits of the things I do like in this film, and I wish they'd done a little bit more with it. And it probably would have been a little bit more, would have struck a little bit more accurately if they'd had a Middle Eastern person playing the role who understood the religion a bit more. Like a Muslim actor, basically. But when you had that clash between Muslim culture, or the difference being seen between Muslim culture and pagan culture, that's where, for me, this film had something interesting to say, but it only touches on it briefly here and there. It doesn't make it a consistent through line. But I would have loved to have seen more of that, because essentially, Banderas' character breaks Muslim faith quite a few times, not just in his exile, which would have made sense for the reason for his exile, but, I mean, he sleeps with some bird who puts urine on his face when he's up north. And it's like, apparently that would have been against that religion. The mead situation is interesting, though. So there's a bit where he talks about not being able to drink. One of the other main guys, he's drinking, and he goes,
"Here, battle, yeah."
Yeah, he hands him a horn to drink from. And he goes, "No, I cannot drink like
fermented grape or wheat."
And he just laughs. He goes, "It's honey, because it's mead." One of the other parts that he does that's very odd against the religion in this, I suppose. But I mean, I think this is a wobbly part to it anyway. Banderas has moments where he shows off as character in this film. So they take the piss out of his horse. So he does loads of show jumps with the horse to prove that his horse is actually a good horse. He also, when he gets he gets given a broadsword which is too heavy for him to use, so he
can't wield it properly, can he?
So is it reformed into a Saracen sword, which is great. I love that bit. Again, another clash of cultures sort of thing. But then he shows off how he can spin it around his hand and all this sort of stuff, which is great. But
clearly just want an excuse to use his training from Zorro.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing with that is
humility's a big part of...
Yeah, so showing off is not really something that you're supposed to do in Islam. So I don't... But again, I'm talking as someone who's a complete layperson. I know small bits of, Islamic culture, but I'm not from it. I'm not part of it. I have not grown up with it. I've not read all the texts. But these are just little bits that I've gleaned from places here, there are people that I've spoken to, where this does kind of clash with that culture. It's a little bit more solid, because it's Michael Crichton, on the Viking culture. Now, there is embellishments and things like that to this, obviously, but it is a little bit more solid on that, because, let's be honest, northern medieval history is much more in the realm of Michael Crichton than Middle Eastern culture. So he's done a lot of works based in this field, including this particular novel, thus this film.
Yeah.
I just thought that was the most interesting thing that I think the film had to offer, and I just felt it could have touched on it a lot more.
Yeah.
Which would have been better had they had a Muslim actor who could have gone, actually, we wouldn't have done that, we would do this.
So, let's talk about the plot then, because I personally agree with Rodrigo that the plot is incredibly thin. Now, I didn't hate the movie. I want to be clear on that. I actually didn't hate the movie. I wasn't bored watching it. I did nod off at one point, but that was more due to me having a diabetic sugar crash.
Nice.
So, I think I only missed about 30 seconds, but still. It was just, when I say thin on plot, what I mean is, and perhaps I mean character more, there's a bit in sort of the midway or just over midway point of the film where they're running through tunnels. They've gone to take the fight to the enemy.
Yeah.
And they're running through these tunnels and they have to swim under. And I was sat there and I was going, I don't know anything about any of these guys.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm supposed to be sad that some of them are getting killed off, but I don't know enough about any of them to care.
No, so there's little visual context clues for a couple of them for some of it, but not really enough to gain background. The ones we know most about are Ibn. I'm just going to call him Ibn because that's what they call him in the film. Is Ibn
Ahmed Ibn Falsad.
Yes, and basically Beowulf is who he really is. Let's be honest.
Bullvine.
Yeah, Bullvine.
Bullvine.
Yeah, he was actually basically a take on Beowulf.
Yes.
But but we don't get a lot about him. We know he's basically a prince of some other realm who is doing this journey as the head, because the first thing when they first come across the Vikings, they're burying his father. But he's a Viking with no money, so he's doing this, I suppose, for money, but mostly just for the fame of it, I suppose, to get notoriety. And at the end he goes, I will die, all I have is my hands, I will die poor. And the king of that country goes, no, you will die you will be buried as a king. So we get a little bit about him from some context clues, but again, it's very thin on the ground. I think saying plot is thin is a little disingenuous, because there's enough, as far as the plot's concerned, it's fine.
I mean, events happen, yes.
Yeah, but we just don't get enough about individual characters.
Yeah. And same with the villains. I still don't know who the villains are.
Yeah, the Death Eaters don't have a lot of backstory, but we get more...
Is that what they're called, the Death Eaters?
Yeah.
Is it?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, the book's called Eaters of the Dead, so I guess it could be.
I think
that's hilarious, because Death Eaters are from Harry Potter, aren't they? That's what Voldemort's servants are called.
Yeah, fuck off Harry Potter as far as regards to this, because Harry Potter is bullshit.
It's better than this.
No, it's not.
It is.
No, it's not. I've watched 3 of the Harry Potters, and this film is better than all 3 combined.
The films are garbage. Okay. I'll give you that.
Fine. Well, that's all I've seen. So I haven't read the books.
No. Anyway, I was a little disappointed. I don't know why. I don't know if you'd ever said this to me or not, but I was convinced it turned out that it was a supernatural thing.
No,
and I was disappointed that it's not, because the setup all seems to be that it's going to be.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah, so that's the difficult part, is because the setup is fine, like, again, ignoring the fact that there is a lack of character development and knowledge of who everyone is historically, like, the actual main plot is fine. The issue is it gets to a point where it very clearly has to make a decision on itself. Are these people demons, or are these people from a different culture? And they went with these are people from a different culture route. Would it have been more interesting had they been demons? And what would they have? What difference would it have made to the plot if they were demons? Like, what differences do you think it would have made that would have either that you think would have improved the plot that way?
To be honest, the only reason it would have made more difference to me is that it's just much cooler. It's literally, it doesn't change the actual play out of the film, really. You'll still have the anticlimactic ending that the film's got. I don't know, so much of that beginning bit is dedicated to setting them up as supernatural. The fact that, first of all, that they eat the dead, but then also that they only ever come on the mist and the fire snake.
And when they kill them, the bodies have disappeared.
Yeah.
The fire snake, the dragon, the serpent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just was expecting, and I'm one of those people. I know not everyone agrees. I know certain people would actually have the exact opposite opinion, and if it was supernatural, it'd have pissed them off and they'd have turned the film off. But for me, that'd have been way more interesting than just their weird feral.
They're kind of a weird underground people, aren't they?
Yeah. Which brings me to one of my points about this film, actually, because there's a scene in it that you and I greatly disagree on, because you like the scene and I hate the scene. And it's right near the beginning, and it's the scene where Ahmed learns to speak. It would actually be Norwegian, wouldn't it? Because he's speaking to Vikings,
Yeah.
but we're hearing it as English, obviously, because we're an English audience.
So it's kind of weird is that we hear whatever the main language being spoken at the time, it's always English.
Yeah.
But like when Ahmed first arrives and sees the Vikings with Omar Sharif, they're talking English to us, but actually they're talking whatever Islamic
Middle
culture,
Eastern,
Middle Eastern language they're speaking. When they arrive, we actually hear Omar Sharif speaking in that language and not being understood, so he switches to Greek, and then he's responded to by one of the Vikings in Latin, which is very similar. And we hear those in their native tongue, and then we end up hearing the Vikings speaking in Norwegian, that being translated into Latin, and then that Latin being translated into what should be Middle Eastern, but we hear it as English. And then when we get to this point that you're about to come to, we're hearing the Norwegian again as Norwegian, and he's listening, and everything he says, if he says anything, is in English.
Yeah.
But as he starts to translate words,
Certain words become English.
yeah. So
Which is a cool way of doing it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's all I meant. Was I really like the concept of that scene.
And here's why it would be. And here's my problem with it. That's stupid. If it's set in reality, here's the simple fix. There's one of two simple fixes. Fix number one: have the enemies be demons. Therefore, magic exists in this universe. Okay, we just say Ahmed's got some sort of latent magic ability where he can pick up languages easily, right? Option two: just set it in a fucking fantasy land. Right,
No, I don't like either of
where
those.
everyone speaks English, and then this weird, because the weird thing about doing it this way, where you've got an actual Middle Eastern culture and an actual Viking culture that both actually really existed in history, and then this weird underground culture that there is no historical evidence ever existed.
No,
that's weird. So make them a fantasy race.
Well, they kind of do,
and to make the whole film a fantasy.
What I would disagree with, certainly the second one, I don't like that one at all. I think what they could have done is, because he's meant to be an ambassador, I know he's got a translator with him, but maybe it would have been better, rather than having Omar Sharif be his translator, that he knows some language, so he knows how to interpret language, because at this point, he's shown no aptitude for learning languages. That's why Omar Sharif is with him, because he's shit at it. He only speaks his own language. And then we're supposed to imagine that, and obviously it's meant to take place over months of journey, not just like a night or a few nights. But the way it's cut together, because to save time, it's basically a montage.
I was going to say, that's not the way it's shown.
No, well, it's because it's got a montage. It would take months to travel that far.
It didn't look like a montage. It looks like it's one night round the same bonfire.
No, it's not. It's meant to be a montage, but yeah. Because it would take months to travel that far on foot.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking, and that's why I was going, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah, no, it's meant to be months, Jamie.
Because what would be better, except modern audiences wouldn't stand for it, is if for half the fucking film, Banderas barely understands what they're saying. And having to find different ways of communicating with him, and he picks it up as the film goes on. And then you can have a very exciting moment where, like, one character's about to, probably when he leaves that guy in the river, where he finally speaks English back to him.
Yeah.
And it'd be like,
Yeah, that would have been cool. I agree with that. I prefer that as an angle, is that he learns some English, or some Norse, during the campfire scenes. But, because let's be honest, some of the stuff he comes out with, you'd be like, why would they have said those words, and how would you have picked those particular words up? Without context of anything else. So, that would have been a better way to do it. I agree with that one. Okay, so we've talked about the clash of cultures, we've talked about casting, we've talked about all sorts of other bits and bobs. So let's talk about the main storyline. We're talking about, so when they arrive at the place that's being attacked by the Death Eaters, they then find a homestead just outside of the main city, or my town, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, has been attacked. They go there, and there's loads of like mutilated bodies and things like that.
Yeah, lots of gore.
Lots of gore, and no sign of the Death Eaters. this is, and then we get sort of a ramp up of action. What did you feel about this attempt at suspense, where we see, the gnawed upon bodies, etc.?
So it's not done badly at all. Because like I said, I was engaged in it. I did, I did point out that at least until a certain point, this is just Predator.
Yes,
but set in the past.
Well, it's kind of Beowulf as well, because it's so you've got Beowulf mixed with Predator. Yeah. And you mentioned another film later on that it kind of...
Oh, Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
But I was more joking about that, just when they're fortifying the town.
Sure.
It reminded me of the bit in Army of Darkness where they're he kits out his car with a bunch of stuff, doesn't he? And I was like, oh, this is if Army of Darkness had a budget.
What was definitely Army of Darkness.
What was the line they said where it was, oh, if they carry their dead, then they're men or something? And I went, if it bleeds, we can kill it. It's
that was it. No, it was Bulvi after, basically goes at one point after the first battle, and they notice that all the dead are missing. They go, the dead, they're gone. They must be demons. And then Bulvi goes, their blood looks real enough. And it's like, yeah, if it bleeds, we kill it.
Yeah, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
I was surprised, actually, because when you mentioned Predator, I was like, oh, only mildly. And then there kept being lines which were almost similar allegories to Predator. I was like, all right, fuck it. It is medieval Predator.
I feel like it should have ended with Banderas being like, get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper. Get to the chopper. Get to the chopper. Banderas strikes again. But no, this bit was fine. Like, I don't have any problem with how this film is shot at all. It's paced pretty well for the most part.
I think the ending's too long. I think it should have ended with the attack inside the cave. The extra bit of attack on the town felt a little bit...
it feels anticlimactic to me.
Yeah.
At first, it was really cool what they were doing where it's in slow-mo. The fact that the entire battle is in slow-mo.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's the end of that. Also, and this isn't anything they've done wrong. This is just the way Hollywood has conditioned us as movie watchers. But were you not proper, oh, Banderas doesn't kill the main villain?
No,
he's the star of the movie.
Yeah, it made sense to me that Bulvi would have done it.
I thought for sure he was gonna, because he gets poisoned, doesn't he, Bulvi?
Yeah. But
and I was like, oh,
that was his honourable way out.
I was like, well,
in the book, he does die in the cave. He gets mutilated in the cave and gets pulled to pieces.
Right, because I was like, oh, he's going to die from the poison. It
probably would have been Banderas that killed him in the...
Yeah, and Ahmed will somehow become the leader of these Vikings or something.
Yeah.
It just feels weird. Just from a Hollywood standpoint, there is nothing wrong with it as a decision. From a Hollywood standpoint, where we've been conditioned over all these years, it'd be like watching Predator and Schwarzenegger doesn't kill the Predator.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, Skyfall and James Bond doesn't kill Javier Bardem. What's his character's name? Raoul Silva, is it?
Raoul Julia.
But Daniel Craig, why are you beating up Raoul Julia?
He's been dead for 20 years. So, the bit that disappointed me with the ending, number one, I think there should have just been a big apocalyptic battle inside the cave. I think that should have been the finale, and then they come home victorious with their dead or they're wounded. The other option is the way they did, because the other problem is when they do the fight in the town, not only is it the slow-mo battle, which is always a bit weird and wet, the bit that annoyed me with it was that they don't kill them all. Yeah. I know there's meant to be hundreds of thousands, but it's how are they feeding this many people when they live inside of a rock?
I know.
And then on top of that, they when they go into the cave, they kill the mother, which is the one that leads them all, who looks, by the way, is way too skinny to be the effigy that they've got of her, which is basically almost like an African embodiment of the pregnant woman. But yeah, it's based almost on that more African culture as far as that
sculptures.
Yeah, that effigy is concerned. But the woman that you meet is skinny. Doesn't match it at all. I don't understand why they would build that effigy for her.
This obviously came out way before, but kind of looks like Cara Delevingne in that awful Suicide Squad movie.
I haven't seen it.
I was like, oh, hello.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's garbage. We might watch it on here one time because it's so bad. I think we'll have a lot of fun taking the mick out of it because it's a bad movie, a real bad movie. You know your movie's bad when one of the best things in your movie is Jai Courtney.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's the level of bad we're talking.
Oh no, that's bad.
Anyway,
so
I like the ending battle in the sense that I'm a bit of a sucker for battles in the rain. I always think that adds a cool look.
Yeah.
And I like the I
just don't like the fact they don't kill them all.
looks good. No, I know, and this is another reason why they should be supernatural, because they are using it's a standard thing in fantasy, sci-fi, anything where you've got an army. It's Avengers. It's Avengers. When they kill the main mother, there's hundreds of Chitauri invading New York.
Right.
You can't have the Avengers kill millions of Chitauri, so they blow up the main ship, they all drop dead.
Yeah.
It's that logic, isn't it?
Yeah.
That fantasy logic of you kill the leader, all the minions die.
What they could have done, because there was so many of them, which in itself it's kind of a logic fail, but whatever. There's so many of them. They have to kill the leader. So once they kill the leader, that's why they all bugger off home. The thing is they're buggering off home. At some point, there's going to be another fucking leader. You've not really solved the problem. So what they could have done, this is based on an actual culture, one of the horse cultures, I think. There was a tribe that used to self-immolate if they lost their leader. So they'd like gouge out their eyes, they'd cut their limbs, and all this sort of weird stuff. It could have been that they could have done like a suicide culture. When the leader and the mother are dead, you kill the culture.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, that would have been a way to not make it supernatural, but have them all like, we've now killed the leader, and just have them all go like, and then because that would have also been bringing in a third culture. Again, you're basing it on an actual horse culture, and just taking it up to another level where it basically becomes like a suicide cult. Once these two are dead, might as well take yourself out, and they do, because that's their honor code. That would have worked better, I think, than them just go, well, we better go home then. See you later, lads.
There's another problem with this film is there's a whole bunch of dropped plot threads that go nowhere.
Tell me some.
There's the blonde girl who we keep getting all these meaningful touches from her to Banderas, goes nowhere. You think there's going to be
he sleeps with her.
No, he sleeps with the brunette one.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, they both look the same to me.
But that goes nowhere either.
Nope.
The brunette one.
Nope.
In fact, the last time we see both women is when they're preparing for the final battle and they go and hide all the children in the cellar. The brunette hands the blonde a bunch of knives and says, if they make it inside, don't let them take the children. Meaning, kill the children.
Yeah.
That never goes any. Like, we need that scene. Not of her killing the children, but we need the scene of, like, in my opinion,
potential that
you need the scene of she's almost about to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's, oh no, we're fine. And then the last one that goes nowhere, but is clearly set up to go somewhere, is the jealous son of the king.
Oh, yeah. So they win a fight against one of the jealous son's men, kills the man, which is a stupid decision, but that's what they do. Because they're trying to show him he has to, because they say, don't they? It's like, so essentially what it is the prince of the land that they're protecting thinks that they're going to come in, once they've killed the Death Eaters, they're then going to try and take over the country. Yeah. That's what he thinks is going to happen. But he's a real slimy get, and he does nothing to help with any of the fights. He's a complete coward. Not
to bring it back to Harry Potter, but he's Draco Malfoy. He's got such a Draco Malfoy vibe to him. Snotty blonde quid.
I
don't know, Gladiator.
He's what's his name?
He's King Joffrey. He feels like Joffrey Baratheon.
Yeah, basically.
He's very
he's a snotty little twat who does nothing.
But wants all the power.
And basically what he does, and he never comes back, actually, in the ending. He's not in the finale at all.
And this is what I'm saying.
I imagine that... Here's the thing. This was chopped up so many times. Definitely. I imagine that both of these storylines probably did have a finale somewhere.
Maybe.
But they were chopped out because, fuck it,
because here's what I would have done. And yes, it means your film goes on slightly longer, but you could have trimmed some stuff from the beginning to make that better. To be honest, I know she was an acting legend, but I to be honest, wouldn't have Omar Sharif in the film at all.
That seemed to be a waste of time.
To be honest, I would just have Banderas be able to speak the language.
Yeah, or he speaks Latin first.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. He could have spoken Latin first, done the whole scene with just Banderas speaking Greek Latin.
Yeah.
He comes in, he tries his language, it doesn't work. He then, fine, I'll try Latin. Or I'll try Greek. He then speaks to that guy in Greek, and the translation comes that way.
Yeah.
And then we know, okay, this guy knows multiple languages.
Yeah.
So when he learns the Viking language, it's not like, well, where the fuck did he get that from?
Yeah.
So, okay, this guy's adept at languages.
Yeah.
He knows basic, construction of sentences and shit. So then that eases that plot off. It removes Omar Sharif, which saves you budget. You can put a bigger actor in one of the other roles if you really need the bigger name.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, there's plenty of fucking big name white actors you can pick from for the Northerners. I don't know why they were all smaller names. You could have done all of that, and then, that would have eased off the entire intro.
So I would have had, do your slow-mo battle, but don't kill the leader yet. I would have Bloodvine go out at this point. Mm-hmm. Still give him a heroic death.
Yeah.
And have him have like a moment with Banderas where he's like, you must save these people.
Or he does the writing.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing. Like, he could do that whole bit where he says, I would die with nothing. And then Banderas can be the one to say, a man who has stories written of him would be considered very wealthy indeed.
Yeah.
You could have done that dialogue with just those two in that moment, and it would have worked just as well, if not maybe a bit better.
Yeah.
And it would have been just as emotional. So I agree with you on that. That would have been a way to trim the ending.
Have them go in. The battle now moves inside, because we've already seen that they've been fortifying the building for a siege, so give us a fucking siege.
Yep.
They move inside, lock down the building, the enemies are outside trying to get in. This is where you can then cut down into the basement and have the, oh shit, we might actually have to kill these kids. Cut back up. Snarky Prince betrays everyone.
Yep.
Tries to, take control of the situation or whatever.
Yeah. Or he tries to kill the kids.
Yeah.
And the women are like, no, actually, we've not lost yet. No, we better make sure it's all done or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the women have to kill and then the women have to kill him to stop him from murdering the kids.
Or maybe he uses this as a sneaky opportunity to kill his own dad so that he's the king.
Yep.
My dad died in the battle or something. Anyway, enemies all get in. Depending on whether you want Banderas to kill humans or not, either he kills the Snarky Prince, or the monsters get the Snarky Prince. Kind of in my head, like that bit in Shaun of the Dead when Dylan Moran's like, and they tear him to pieces. Have Banderas defeat the leader in this siege, which would be, I guess, very Army of Darkness, to be fair. And then, like you said, still have him write all these lovely stories about Bloodvine.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, that's just a better ending.
I agree with you. I actually agree with you. That is a better ending, because you're right. There are certain things that are set up. I still personally really like this film. I like the journey of it. Because I have Viking ancestry, it does kind of speak to me on that level. I love the interplay between that and the Muslim culture, which I just wish there was a bit more of, and that it was a bit more accurate. But there is room for improvement in this film. When it got after it all felt kind of okay to me until after they'd invaded the cave, and then when it got to them, and they're like, oh, they're going to come in the rain and attack during the day, and then it was just a slow-mo battle and then gone. It was really anticlimactic.
Yeah, and then the ending feels rushed as well. Like the ending, literally, the battle finishes, Bloodvine dies, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden, Banderas is on a boat waving goodbye to his friend. I'm like, you're not going to say goodbye to the girl you fucked. You're not going to say a more emotional, because that's one of the strong points of the film. It
also doesn't help that the last words that the Viking guy says to him is like, "Bye, Arab."
I know.
You're like, oh.
Yeah, weird. But one of the strong points of the film, and unfortunately, I'm terribly sorry, but I don't know that character's name or that actor's name, but that blonde Viking with the beard, the one who does the fight against the Snarky Prince's friend, one of the strong points of the film is his relationship with Banderas.
Yeah, he's one of the best characters in it, and his relationship with Banderas is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then the end, it just kind of mugs it off. And the fact that he says "bye Arab," he could have at least said "bye Ahmed." So it's like, because the whole rest of the film, he's called him little brother and things like that.
Yeah.
The fact that Ahmed says in his final dialogue, the Vikings who helped me go from, become a man, while I, fight the battle and become a man. And then that final honor is not just see ya Arab. It's by Ahmed. I recognize you by your first name instead
As a person.
Yeah, because he's also the one who calls him Ibn and basically tells everyone his name is Ibn because he says he's Ahmed Ibn something Ibn. Yeah, and because he's got Ibn, which means son of, because it's repeated so much, he just goes, yeah, his name's Ibn, which is a very Viking thing to do.
So his name's son of.
Yeah, son of a. But. Like, again, that's a nice progression on their friendship. It's just like, oh, that guy's called Abe and whatever. And then, oh, okay, well, now we're in the fight together. You're my little brother. And then at the end, once he's won the fight with him, he's now not just little brother. He's not Aben. He's not Arab. He is Ahmed. He is the guy who has won his respect and become, a warrior, a real man in this fight. I think the choice of the word Arab in this point, at the beginning, would have made sense. But at the ending...
It's weird, innit?
It really, like, even within the context of the film, it's out of place.
It feels like Michael Crichton going, just remember, kids, I'm a racist.
Don't forget racism.
So let's talk music. You were a big fan of the soundtrack of this film?
Oh, yes. Jerry Goldsmith, bringing it home. Jerry Goldsmith almost never disappoints.
What are some of his other films?
Jerry Goldsmith?
I'm asking you to tell the audience what some of his other films are.
Jerry Goldsmith. So he did...
Don't say that like he's Hans Zimmer.
He's bigger than Hans Zimmer.
No one's bigger than Hans Zimmer.
He's the original Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer's the biggest composer in the... Not Hans Zimmer. What's his name? John
Zimmer.
No.
If you put him in context, does he become a Zimmer frame?
Oh, God, why can't I think of his name? John something. The guy who made the Star Wars theme.
Oh, John Goldsmith.
No.
So I'm going to pull up I'm sorry, but there's just no way Jerry Goldsmith is not getting
what's his face as well? Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman is not bigger than... No.
Fuck off. Danny Elfman definitely is.
No, honestly, you are wrong. I'm not being a dick. I'm really not being a dick.
Danny Elfman's one of the most recognisable composers of the world.
Yes, he is. I'm not taking away from Danny Elfman, but he is not Jerry Goldsmith.
All right. You name me some of Jerry Goldsmith's films, and I'll tell you if any of them have music that is better than, say, the Batman theme that Danny Elfman made.
Hang on. Better is a question of taste.
Doesn't
We're
matter.
talking about a bigger name, okay?
Right.
So let's be absolutely 100%.
So how would you measure that?
Well, I'd argue it based on the level, like the big famous films he's done. He did Planet of the Apes, Logan's Run. He did The Omen, Capricorn 1. He did Police Story. He did Star Trek The Motion Picture. He did Outland, which is a great film. He did the theme tune and everything for the Waltons. Poltergeist. Did the film Poltergeist.
Right.
He did Rambo First Blood. He did the theme music for The Return of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. He did Psycho 2's soundtrack. He did Twilight Zone the movie. He did Gremlins. He did Supergirl. He did Rambo 2. He did The Burbs with
Tom Hanks. Susan Sarandon, I think.
Yep. He did Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. He did the original Total Recall. Gremlins 2. He did Omen 4. Omen 4. He did Wayne's World, but that's just the Paramount theme, so... He did the theme to the Paramount logo, for fuck's sake. Basic Instinct. Dennis the Menace. Maybe not that one. Star Trek Next Generation, he did the theme tune. He did Star Trek First Contact. He did Shiloh, which was a big name at the time, though it's not really a remembered film. LA Confidential. He did Hercules. Disney's Hercules.
Yeah.
He did Air Force One with Harrison Ford. He did Small Soldiers.
Right.
Star Trek Insurrection. He did The Mummy. 13th Warrior. He did Hollow Man. He did Star Trek Voyager's theme tune. He also did Deep Space Nine's theme tune, I believe, as well. Sum of All Fears. Star Trek Nemesis.
I mean... I'm not denying he's big, but I think Elfman's bigger.
Go on then, show me some of Elfman's, because
if we're talking in terms of,
I've never heard anyone talk of I've heard a lot of people talk about Elfman in real reverence. So I'm not saying he's not mentioned reverently, but to the level of Jerry Goldsmith is not what I've heard. So
to be fair, I don't know if he is or isn't in technical skill, but in terms of, I'm talking now in how recognisable these films
that's
are.
what I'm talking about as well. I'm not talking about.
So his first few, I'll give you his first few.
That's the same with any composer, I'm sure. It's mostly
so his
small
first
stuff,
big
isn't it?
one, I would argue, is in 1988, which is Beetlejuice. Right.
So that's already after Jerry Goldsmith has started making impact.
So Beetlejuice, Midnight Run, Scrooged, Batman. Which obviously that became such an iconic theme.
That's an iconic
Nightbreed, Dick Tracy, Darkman, Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
I mean, that doesn't... because it's a shit film.
Nightmare Before Christmas ain't shit.
It's a shit film.
No, it's not.
I hate that film.
Do you?
Yeah.
It's good. To be fair, I'm not huge on the film itself. I like the music, though. I really
never
like the
could be bothered
music.
with the music in it.
Black Beauty, Dolores Claiborne, Dead Presidents, Mission Impossible. I didn't realise he did that.
Oh, wow, that's good.
The Frighteners, Freeway, Extreme Measures, Mars Attacks, Men in Black, Flubber, Good Will Hunting, A Simple Plan, A Civil Action, Instinct, Anywhere But Here, Sleepy Hollow. It does seem like he is Tim Burton's go-to guy.
He is definitely Tim Burton's go-to guy.
Proof of Life, Planet of the Apes, Spy Kids, previous episodes.
Interesting he did Planet of the Apes when the original was by Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah, and he did the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes. Spy Kids, previous episode.
Ugh.
Spider-Man, previous episode. Men in Black 2, Red Dragon, Chicago, Hulk, Big Fish, Spider-Man 2, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The
Charlie and the Chocolate
Johnny
Factory.
Depp one.
Sorry, Danny. You should
Corpse
separate
Bride. Corpse Bride's a good film.
It's all right.
Deep Sea 3D, Nacho Libre, Charlotte's Web, Meet the Robinsons.
See, here's the thing.
I am skipping some of them just because I
what
will be forever.
What I will say about this comparison, maybe what it is to do with certain ages. Because Danny Elfman basically didn't make much of an impression before sort of the late 80s.
Yeah.
Whereas Jerry Goldsmith had been making impressions in major films since the late 60s. So it could be to do with that. Like, obviously, there's a tail off in Jerry Goldsmith when he died, where Danny Elfman is still alive and still going. Yeah. So, and obviously, a lot of the stuff that you and I have seen is a lot more recent. So we will have seen a lot more of Danny Elfman's films than we would have Jerry Goldsmith.
To be fair, pop culture, I feel like pop culture didn't really become a proper thing till the 80s. There was obviously pop culture before that, but pop culture as it exists today, where it's all
recognisable.
consuming.
Yeah, that's why it became a nostalgia thing, where there was nostalgia for the 60s, but there wasn't really a nostalgia for 60s movies.
Because I'm not going to bother reading anymore, but basically it goes on to be every Tim Burton film, all the Men in Blacks, Silver Linings Playbook.
I don't know what that is.
That's the film that, like, other than Hunger Games, that's the film that made everyone take Jennifer Lawrence seriously as an actress. I believe she won the Oscar for it, and I think Robert De Niro may have won an Oscar for it as well.
Robbie.
It looks like he's Sam Raimi's go-to composer as well, because it looks like he's done every Raimi film since the first Spider-Man.
Wow.
Up to and including Doctor... Oh, yeah, he takes a loss for this one. He did the music for the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy.
I mean, I don't know if the soundtrack is bad on that. So
I'm sure it probably isn't.
I'm sure. Obviously, the films are terrible.
But he basically said, and obviously, like I said, it's not a fair comparison because Jerry Goldsmith's dead now, but it looks like, because it splits these into decades.
Yeah.
And it looks like Elfman's just getting more and more popular. He's done more films each decade since he started.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Which is good. He doesn't seem to have hit a tail off.
Yeah.
It's bugging me that I can't remember who that John is, though, who did the Star Wars theme, though. So
John Williams.
John Williams, there we go.
Yeah.
I kept wanting to say John Waters, but I knew it weren't John Waters because he's a kooky director.
But yeah, no.
I liked the music in this.
I like the main theme with the horn.
I liked the main theme was fine. I didn't hate it. It felt very standard fantasy historical adventure to me. I liked the use, just it reminded me of the X-Files. There's a weird use anytime something that may or may not be creepy is happening, which is another reason it's disappointing that it's not something supernatural, because the soundtrack leads you to believe it is. There's a little, I don't know what instrument it is, but it's a high-pitched thing, and it's a very simple melody. It just goes like a ooh, like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Like a theremin.
But it's not a theremin.
Not a theremin.
I feel like it might be some sort of flute.
Okay.
And that's something X-Files did a lot in its early seasons.
Right.
Where, like, when something spooky was going on, you'd get almost like a windpipe type noise.
Right. Interesting.
But yeah, no, I liked that. I liked the use of that.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the soundtrack is pretty good for this. There's a couple of points where it has to cut itself quite seriously, because I think the editing can sometimes be a little bit jumpy. There's a couple of shots where it sort of jumps from one scene to the next without a real progression, and it feels like the soundtrack has to kind of jump to match it. That's not really the fault of the musician, that's the fault of the editing.
And the fact it's been cut to ribbons.
Yeah, it seemed to be a factor with John McTiernan, because when I did my review on my Cyberpunk Studios YouTube channel for Rollerball, I compared it with the original. Most of my favourite parts of that, though, are me ribbing on the new Rollerball 2002. Yeah. But when I looked into that film, there was an awful lot where it seemed to be he'd made a cut, it wasn't good enough, it got cut again, and then it got cut again, and then it got cut again. It seemed to be whatever John McTiernan touched from, like, at least the mid-90s onwards, it needed to be absolutely cut to pieces in order to make anything resembling a coherent film.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if he just got lucky on Die Hard and Predator?
See, I'm not sure he did, because there's so much cohesion in those films. I wonder if he lost it he obviously lost it mentally to the fact that he got to the point where he wiretapped his producer. Yeah. So obviously something happened where he shifted. Now, often in this case, I'm not saying it is in this case, but often cocaine is the answer for most of this shit when it happens in the film industry. I don't know that as the fact in John McTiernan's case. It may have nothing to do with, narcotics and stuff. But usually I find when people go off the rails, they then come back and they go, yeah, I was on cocaine. Okay, so overall... this film seems to be a film where it's kind of almost Marmite. It's not so bad that people despise it. It's generally not so good that it's like a 10 out of 10 sort of film.
Which is weird, because for me it's just there. Which is the opposite of Marmite, isn't it? Yeah,
but it seemed to be like, even from the professional reviews, that, Ebert was kind of on the negative side of Marmite.
And the other was 3 out of 4.
Yeah, it's like, but again, it never hits 4 out of 4 or 1 out of 4. It's always somewhere, like, it's not quite neutral, but it's not quite off it far enough either. So, for me, this is closer to a 4 out of 4 than it would be a 0 out of 4. But it is not a perfect film. There is, as we've discussed, there are plenty of things that would have improved it in terms of its pacing, in terms of learning more about the characters, and giving a bit, and improving the ending, certainly, giving a bit more time so that the ending could be a little bit better played out. But yeah, as for yourself, where would you stick this film? Would you recommend it? Would you?
This for me is exactly a middle of the road film. It exists, and it's a film. And I don't hate that I've seen it. I also will never watch it again. Okay. Then again, I say I'll never watch it again. This definitely feels like one of those films that 10 years from now I will forget that I've seen it.
Right.
And if it'll be like on TV, I might sit and watch it, and then halfway through go, hang on a minute.
I know what
I've seen this before.
But do you think you would enjoy it?
I don't think I'd enjoy it a second time.
No?
No. I wasn't gripped by it, but I wasn't bored by it either. And I think, to be honest, I can't imagine anywhere would play this in the future, given the racial issue. Like you said, we're going to turn up on TV, I don't think. Right, but to be fair, we're kind of reaching the end of films turning up on TV now anyway, because they just go on Netflix.
Okay,
but it's not terrible. Yeah. It's there.
For me, I would watch it again. I mean, this is... I can't remember how many times I've seen this film. This must be at least my 7th watch through of this film.
Yeah.
Probably more. And I enjoy it every time. It is a very enjoyable film, at least in my opinion. It's not going to blow your socks off. It's not going to change your mind on anything, and because it's not deep enough. I mean, the irony is we just came off of watching Once Were Warriors, and then we watched 13th Warrior. That was just pure coincidence that we did 2 films back to back with Warrior in the title. But they're both very different films.
Oh, incredibly different.
Once Were Warriors
couldn't be more different.
Yeah, Once Were Warriors is a recommendable dark drama about a subject, whereas this is an easy-to-watch action movie without any real depth to it. So this is a much more, I'd say, entertaining film.
Yes.
Because that's the word you can use for this, and not really for Once Were Warriors. But it is not a better film. Actually, far from it. it needed a bit more time in the oven, a little bit more consideration of script and pace and character. Feels to me maybe they tried too much to follow the book. Bear in mind the book was written in the 70s.
Could be.
Because the characters probably were blander in the 70s and no one cared.
Probably.
Because generally in the 70s, most film characters were quite bland as well anyway. Yeah. Whereas by the 90s, people wanted at least a bit more depth from their characters. And certainly nowadays, a lot of our films are more vignettes about identities and people and history and whatever.
They really went crazy for doing Crichton adaptations in the 90s, didn't they?
I mean, he's done
After
a lot
Jurassic
of
Park.
Yeah, he's done a lot of great work and quite a lot of not so great work.
Disclosure.
But yeah, things like Jurassic Park obviously became massive box office booms. This
and then,
did not.
Do you know the story about the sequel to Jurassic Park?
What, Jurassic Park 2?
Yeah, Lost World.
Depends what story.
So,
I've seen the film.
So you know about the book sequel?
Oh, no, I don't.
So there was no book sequel, and Spielberg forced Crichton to write one. Because for some reason, Spielberg wasn't just like, well, I can just make a sequel anyway. He was like, no, I'm going to make a sequel, and I'm going to tell you what the plot is, and you write it.
So weird.
Yeah, it's such a weird way to do it. And apparently the book's garbage because Crichton didn't want to write it. So it's just like he just half-arsed it. I mean, let's be honest. The movie's not good either. I mean, Lost World Jurassic Park is one of the worst films in Spielberg's entire filmography.
I mean, it probably says a lot as to why Spielberg is not a writer.
And he doesn't do sequels.
Yep.
Spielberg very famously doesn't do sequels. I think I read once he has only ever done sequels twice in his whole career, and both times they've been like terribly received.
Jurassic Park 2, what was the other one?
Did he direct Indiana Jones, or is he just the producer on it?
Oh, I'd have to look that up.
I feel like he directed the second Indiana Jones, which most people agree is not good.
So Spielberg did Last Crusade. Temple of Doom was directed by Spielberg. So who did Dial of Destiny? I doubt that was Spielberg.
It's definitely not Spielberg. I'm sure
James
Spielberg.
Mangold.
Sure Spielberg didn't direct Crystal Skull, though. I'm sure he didn't.
His name is on there as the director.
Because I've read an interview with him before where he just threw Lucas under the bus and was like, "Yeah, I didn't want to do the aliens. That was George." And I said, George, this is a bad idea. Maybe. He was like, George, this is a bad idea. But George just went, no, people love aliens. Trust me, I'm Star Wars.
Yeah, George Lucas did story/characters. So it looks like George did the story for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
But yes, notoriously doesn't like doing sequels.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's basically it, isn't it?
I don't think I have anything else to say about this movie.
I mean, we've talked about. I'm just trying to think. We've talked about the music. We've talked about the visuals. We've talked about characters. We've talked about the story. We've talked about
how
what we
do
would
it
do
differently.
We've talked about casting. I mean, we're on an hour and 5 minutes.
It's fine. Then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, because you want these to be roughly an hour anyway, don't you? Yeah, so that's probably good enough. Right, let's just do a finale then.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was our revisit of the 13th Warrior.
Woo!
I hope you enjoyed it. Have you seen the film? If so, feel free to write to us or comment and let us know what you thought. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out, I guess.
Yay, do it. It's the best.
And in the meantime, we will see you next time when we give another film a second take.